Good morning, everybody and everyone. My name is Michele Notari. I am professor at the University of Teacher Education in Bern, and I'm working together with Gary Bono from HKU related to this project. Today I will introduce you in this topic: reality, virtuality, a mix, a mess, an opportunity for enhanced learning experiences. That's what I'm talking about. Actually, it's around 3 a.m. at my place in Switzerland. That's why I've chosen to record a short presentation and give it to you over that. That's the topic, and let's go for it. We go now to the next slide, which shows the following. Actually, there are different types of virtual reality or mixed or mediated realities. One of them is virtual reality. I think it's the most common around you, but we also have augmented reality, which is also quite broadly used. One of the first approach of that was the broad use of augmented reality was in Pokemon Go. I think the game you all of you, or at least your kids, know. But for education also may be important to mention modulated reality or diminished reality, where we really extract different things out of the what reality could be. So all this is the variety of potential which can be used for different things and also for education. It's a big thing, actually. You've seen in the last year, 2017, about $2.2 billion has been invested in this virtual reality and augmented reality in companies. And if you have a look at this line here, actually a lot of companies try to implement that, but since 2016, less companies got more money. So, of course, also Google and Apple are very much interested in this topic, and there are predictions that virtual and augmented reality will be part of our daily life within a couple of years. So that's why it's one of other reasons, among other reasons, why it is important to mention and talk about that, and also to experience it also in a learning setting. Of course, Google, the big players, Google and Apple, try to fit into this gap and try to give any examples and try to have some implementation of virtual realities and augmented reality in education. Google, with their initiatives Bring the World into the Classroom, I will send you the link about that, try to give some enhanced experience about Volcano, where you see the students using their smartphone and seeing how an eruption of volcano takes place in the middle of their classroom, which means you can really make some specific trips to places which would be very dangerous to visit with the school, with the students, or even impossible due to the schedule you are having every day. That is one example. Another example, which is rather related to non-formal education, is Google Maps and Street Views. In the very next future, this is the next version of Google Maps, where you have a augmented reality interface showing you the way, and of course you can put also some other things like this fox, which has been introduced into this view of the street around you. So Google Maps really enhances navigation through places you don't know, and it's part of a non-formal educational setting. So augmented and virtual reality will be implemented either in formal education, classroom settings, but also in non-formal education, non-formal learning. We will focus in the next couple of slides on formal education, about how this virtual or augmented reality can enhance the learning experience. Actually, what is learning? Learning is about representation. That's a cognitive way of understanding how learning takes place. You have a virtuality, you have the world, which is like something we experience every day, and of all the things we experience, we make sort of a mental model, a representation in our brain. Here is symbolized by these icons. Of course, it's electric circuits in our neuronal system which show this representation. And learning is nothing else than changing this, or one part of learning is, first of all, is creating these representations and also evolving this part of representation during a learning process. This world is actually not a two-dimensional thing. Actually, our world is we're living, and we are used to have representations which are not two-dimensional but three-dimensional, as you see on this simulation of methadone molecule. And of course this representation has been done in our brain, and we can capture it. So we live in a three-dimensional world. Why should we not try to also get learning experience in such a three-dimensional way? So, which means virtual and augmented reality can be used that way. On the left side you see like an experience where students can see how a whale really jumps into their classroom. This is a way to really figure out the size and the power and the way of motion of such an animal, one of the biggest mammals living on Earth. And of course it's reading in a book about that, or seeing how this whalefish jumps into the gym room, and the real size of it makes a difference in the perception and also makes a difference in the representation. This is fact, you can say it's like sort of consuming, using this three-dimensional representation as a consumption, information intake into your representation. On the left side, there's rather a creation. There you see a learner or a man just trying to figure out how DNA could be fixed, or how DNA could be changed. So that means there is like a sort of a creation of a three-dimensional representation, and this also leads to a learning experience by trying to figure out how this DNA molecule, which is this symbol for this double helix here, could be set up together and could also be maybe built or rebuilt or done. So there are two elements which can be used for virtual or augmented reality, like the one of creating a representation or representing a perception. The whalefish was the part of representation. You have a virtuality, you have a reality, which is the whalefish, and represent it using like sort of a virtual reality setting. And the other one is about creation, like managing or trying to create the representation you have in your head of a DNA molecule, and try to use it and work on it using specific tools and objects, and create a three-dimensional representation of what happens in the brain. And that's what we will be talking about. We think that using such three-dimensional representation and creating them could be fruitful for learning experiences, and we will present a software which allows your learners, students, to create their mental representation of what they have learned. And this could be something about science, but in your case it will be something about English, which means the representation of the stories, of a story they have written in English, or of the stories they have read, a book, a chapter. So they create a three-dimensional representation using the software, which has been, by the way, programmed or coded at our University of Teacher Education in Switzerland. So now I wish you a lot of fun, and I hope you will have a good learning experiences. And please, Gary, take over and lead these teachers and help them to use and to have fruitful learning experiences with their classes. See you in July. Bye bye.